So we're on another episode of the series Begin with the End in Mind. I'm excited. I would always use that word. I'm still trying to look for a synonym to that word. But every time I have guests with me, I'm always using the word excited because there's something about having people speak into your thoughts about something. And I know that the guests we have today are not just people who will be speaking amazing ideas, but people who will be sharing from experience and their work with people. So you have people who have their own experience, and from their experience they bring stories, they bring learning. Then you have people who are working with people, and then they bring their stories. So today you're having like two portions, let me put it that, with Oduah and Bridget Elesin. And as we go into the episode today, where we're going to be focusing on relationships and marriage and family and parenting, I would like to let you know a little bit about them just a bit now. Bridget Elesin is a Maxwell leadership teacher, trainer, coach, and speaker. She's also a marriage and family life practitioner, as well as mental health counselor. As a leadership and marriage strategist, she has amazing results in helping people find clarity, in addition to building individual and family systems that create bliss. Okay, so like I always say, when you hear things like this, you need to start pursuing those people on social media and start getting understanding about the things that they do. Okay, her marriage of 20 going on 21, you heard that right. She probably doesn't look it, but yes, 20 going on 21, is blessed with 3 amazing children. Thank you for being here with us, Bridget Elesin.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
Beautiful. Now, Bunmi Oduah, I know a lot of you already know her. So I know you already know her story. But for those that don't know her and just here today and seeing that name for the first time, I just want you to also know that Bunmi is a relationship expert, author. We're going to talk a little bit about her book soon. Teacher and speaker. She helps high-achieving Christian women who desire to get married to wait gracefully for their marriages and enjoy being single. I know some guys who will be watching this will be saying, are you saying that those of us that are single guys can now not learn? No, please, you can sit down and definitely learn from some of the things she's going to be dropping today. Her Waiting Gracefully program and book equips people with the knowledge and tools that they need to prepare and position them for their marriage, live purposefully, and enjoy being single. Bunmi is also blessed with children and married for 7 years. Beautiful. Thank you for joining us today, Bunmi.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It was my pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Great. Okay, so let's start with you, Bridget Elesin. As I said earlier on, we have 2 different aspects of being able to bring lessons to other people. The stories and the experiences we've had, okay, the stories that we can tell about our own journey, and of course the things we could have also experienced working with people on their own journey. And so starting on this today, I would like to have you share with us 2 parts, okay, the good and for those of you that might know this old classic movie, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Now we won't be able to tell us 3 parts, so they're going to just tell us the 2. So on one extreme, the good, great, or the definitely not for me stories. Definitely not for me again. Maybe something you can say, Bunmi, this happened to me, and I was like, never in relationship. We want to start with that because we know that some of those events or experiences we've had kind of shape where we are today. And I know that in you being able to share with us and help us to go deep in the concept of marriage particularly, you will be able to, we will be able to, let me put it that way, extract from your own story. So give us, on your journey, 2 stories that you say, this one, not me again kind of story. And then this one, the great one, I need this to repeat in my life.
Oh, okay. Well, if I remember correctly, I think the first will be when we got married. I've always known myself and my husband were 2 different temperaments. But like I always tell people this, my reason for marrying, apart from God led me, like praying and having that peace that, okay, say yes to him. Because I actually said no to him before I actually said yes to him. So when we got married, that's temperament difference. We still have it now, but we're more matured. So it was there. It was there. And for a long time, I'm very spontaneous. I'm sanguine choleric. So I'm totally an extrovert. My husband is completely introverted. So it's phleg and melancholy, So with that kind of temperament, it was tough. So I could manage, wing some things. And like I keep telling people, before you get married, unlike attracts. When you get married, it irritates. So before you get married, that's unlike, oh, I enjoy her. Oh, she's lively, she's this. Will attract you to her, bubbly. But when you get married, like, can't you just sit in one place? Can't you just be still? Will you not just be quiet for, And man, I was like, no, no, no. You allowed me to be me. That was why I said yes to you. I didn't want drama. So why now? So one day, I can't remember what happened. Normally, I jot, I write too, I'm an author. And normally, right from when I was growing up, I'm always carrying notebook and pencil, so I'll write. And then I think my husband also has that habit to an extent, but he jots down his thoughts and maybe prayer points and stuff. So one day, I don't know what happened. I was going through his notes and I saw two lines. You know how you draw two lines and you have Bridget, Tunde, and then you have qualities, on one side was like loud, talkative, this is that. On the other side, it was, I'm like, this guy. I was shaking. It didn't make sense to me. It didn't make sense. Like I just felt maybe what I was saying then, I didn't understand what it was, but it was not a good feeling. So I waited for him. And if you know me those days, I attack you as you come. I don't wait. If I say hello, good evening, welcome, it's just me saying welcome just to be polite. So I'm like, guy, what is this? And he was like, oh, nothing. I said, no, what is nothing? You have these two lines drawn. It's like you are the good guy, I'm the bad guy. What is happening here? He said, no, 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 nothing. He was just thinking through and wondering, our personalities. And this was what he could come up with for me, for himself. It wasn't to harm me. It was him trying to understand the woman he's with. He's never been married before and everything, but he just wants to understand. But I didn't see it that way. I didn't see it that way. I'm just like, you've labeled me names and stuff. And it took me a while to, normally I'm not somebody that keeps grudges. I don't do grudges, I don't do unforgiveness, but it took me a while to wrap my head around it, to understand from his point of view that he wanted to understand our differences. But that helped me kind of, and I too started thinking through, is this what you really are? Is this who you are? So I needed to be at peace with myself over what I saw, and for us to go on to understand his personality as well. So if you are this kind of person, meaning you will like some peace and quiet. And so I had to overhaul, not really change my personality. I'm still myself. I've not changed. But then I had to help him understand the woman he was with. I had to help him understand that guy. One is his mom was on the quiet side. So I had to look him in the face to say, my guy, I am never going to be like your mom. Never. So deal with it. Just know that this is Bridget. I will do my best because I'm a woman with the mind of Christ and I would treat you well, but I am never. So don't expect that if I talk, you talk, I'll be quiet. It won't happen. If I'm quiet, maybe I don't have anything to say, but it won't happen. So that for me was the very challenging one. Then the other one will be childbirth. When I got pregnant, we had our daughter immediately. I think it was 10 months after we got married. So we got married June, 10 months after April. Same date, 14th, Grace arrived. And so we were not prepared because we had told ourselves, oh, we will not give birth until 6 months, 1 year. Later, my mom was like, don't try it. Oh, don't even think about it. Just, if it happens, it happens. Don't start giving. I said, no. We wanted to get to know ourselves sexually because we tried our best to abstain from sex during courtship. So we didn't want that, whatever. I said, let's get to know ourselves sexually. Let's get to, And my mom like, hey, don't even think of it. Whatever it is, because I'm the first of 8 children. And my husband is the 4th of 5. So he had siblings. So I would be like the first having the first grandchild and stuff. So my mom was not ready to wait. Okay. And interestingly, my mom had me, she got married quite early. She had me when she was 19. So that's for her was like, you are even too old. Give birth immediately. Don't even wait. So it was interesting. And so for me, I was like, okay, let's see. So what we were taught, yes, being the first of 8 children, I'm used to children, used to taking care of. But when I got pregnant, it was a whole lot of drama. A whole lot of drama. I didn't know about fibroid. Later it was, oh, you have fibroid, you have this. And my husband was just like, you don't even need to talk about this. Let's just pray and wait. And God did it. It didn't affect the child, but initially it was tough. But then we did antenatal together. So most times I will complain. Oh, this is what's happening. When we see the gynecologist, I'm looking at him like, Mr. Elesin, how are you doing? I'm fine. So they say, no, she's not fine. She's not fine at all. I say, the guy's like, are you the one pregnant? She says she's fine. I said, no, because when we leave here, she'll go complain and I don't know what to do. So I'm like, no, I'm fine right now. Okay, what are the complaints? He will be the one complaining. Oh, she said this, she said that. The guy was okay, this is interesting. And then he'll say, oh, is that how? I said, but right now I'm not feeling that way. That's why I said I was fine. So, okay, but your husband is, I say, oh, this happened before, but I've moved on. So, but he's still, because he's the one suffering it. So he will still talk. And the guy was really, most times when we get to him, he's always like, these two people, they're here again. But we had fun going through that. Then having our daughter, it was tough. It was challenging because I had some complications, bleeding. Before then, I had to do bed rest, waited. And by the time I had her, I couldn't really breastfeed. So that season was a bit tough. And we kept telling ourselves, nobody tells you some of these things. Because yes, we went through counseling. We actually did 4 levels of counseling. And we went through a lot of stuff, but nobody prepared us, for the drama to give birth and being first-time parents and not having our lives and stuff like that. So it was a bit tough. I thought I knew what to do. It was really, really, really tough, breastfeeding and all of that. But we were able to go through, and then we still had 2 more. So it wasn't such a bad experience at the end of it all, because at least we could brace up to have 2 more. So that's 2 things I'll say, yeah, 2 tough season for me in the early part of the marriage. Later parts, can I remember some things? Yes, just understanding the dynamics. Till today, we still have that temperament issue. Sometimes we still get on our nerves. Like, we're 2 different people. I don't think that we're into we pass on to glory, but we've learned how to manage ourselves. So those are the 2 really tough times, yeah, at the beginning of the marriage. Very, very, very tough. And maybe later too. See, around childbirth, understanding ourselves and day-to-day conflicts management and drama. But so far, we're good.
Awesome. Awesome. You can see that you just almost made me and Bumi get off our chairs sharing and laughing at that time, really. But I like the fact that, we're getting to know you just listening to your story already. But like I always do when I have a guest, I just don't want, the guest to miss out on some of the things that you have shared here. There was something that we learned recently on marriage, and it's about, being learning to stay in the place of continually studying your partner. Always have to do that. And I see that, that awareness, that conversation you had, that discovery, because if you didn't bump into the writings about you, the FBI job he was doing about you, you probably would not have had that conversation then. You would eventually have had it, but maybe not at that time, and just in that you said something. You said I had to see from his point of view. And it reminds me of one of the questions that, a professor raised in one of my courses recently. And he said something like, so when you're trying to kind of deal with dynamics in a relationship, he's like, okay, first yourself, how do you see that person and how do you see the situation? He now said something, he said, how do you think that person is seeing you in that situation? Because I many times we're always like, oh, this is how I see, but we're not asking, how is that person thinking and thinking? So
Very true.
I'm not even thinking about how the person is thinking. I'm thinking. Usually, I'm just like, how is the person thinking and how am I thinking? Not much of how. So you've been able to come to the point where you were saying, I had to see that was how you were seeing the situation, and for couples and those dating or those in family setups, you will have those. And then, this temperament thing is not just spouses that have it, siblings have it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So for anyone who's listening today, any category of relationship you have, this applies, right? And for you to say, how are you actually realizing the way that person is seeing you? Because we're only thinking, how am I seeing that person? How is the person seeing me? Seeing and being able to bring the person onto your page on that. I really like the fact that you said that. And then you've been able to also throw in somewhere along in all the amazing gems you've dropped,
Yes.
that there was a togetherness during your antenatal. And I like the fact that you was telling the doctor, no, she's not fine. She's telling you she's fine. She's not, that will be troubled. And guys are always smart guys, and mature guys always do that. When they're like, she's telling you something, she means something else. I know her better than that. And to say, look, until you really intentionally go through particular seasons together, and for any of those fresh couples who are looking at getting their first babies come out this 2024, it's something you probably want to be looking out for, to say, how are we going to be intentional to be together on this journey?
Yeah.
Because something will be happening, and don't ever feel like you're the first experiencing what you experience in marriage. Because and as far as me was nodding, and I was also nodding, where we're like, oh yeah, we had something similar. Anything you will ever go through in marriage, a lot of other people have gone through it. So you are not alone, and you're not the first going through that. So thank you so much for sharing that. Bunmi, I can't wait to hear your own story, the good or great, and then the definitely not me again.
Should we start with the definitely not me again? As she was talking, I actually thought of when I was waiting to get married, I was really like, I don't know about today. Well, I do know, because obviously I have clients and I have an audience and I talk to them regularly. But I remember that, first of all, I had this thing of not wanting to have gaps. So if you were with a guy and then things didn't work, you were literally almost looking for the next guy. So there were no gaps in between. And it was just like as though I didn't want to have spaces. It was as though I didn't want to be by myself to find out about myself. So it was like, no, we want to get married. So let's just, go from person to person to person. And I remember that there was this particular guy, and it's put, there's a phrase I have. I'm pausing because I can see where this is going. But I had a phrase after a while, after the experience with him, I had a phrase where I said, immaturity is unattractive to me in a man. And I started saying it. I want an older man. I want a man that's a few years or significant years ahead of me. I literally kept saying it. And then because my family setup is such that I have older siblings who are significantly older than I am. And so, where other people my age think a certain way, I didn't have that luxury because I had older siblings and I grew up in a family setting where people were significantly older. So there was sort of my thought process. If my mates were thinking like 15-year-olds, I thought like a 20-year-old at that point in time, because I was farther ahead of them on the journey in terms of life, just life circumstances. But I remember this particular guy, we got introduced by a mutual friend. He was in one country, I was in another country. That's why I said definitely not me again. Because before I met him, and this even taught me something about sticking to what you said you would do. Because before I met him, I had had a few experiences, because I lived in the UK. I'd had a few experiences with, like, maybe the guy was in Nigeria and I was here, and then we're trying to do that whole long distance thing. And I had said to myself, I didn't want to do long distance. Then I met this guy and he was cute. And I just thought to myself, oh dear, let's give it a try now. What's the worst? We'll fly to, I think he was in like Dubai or somewhere like that. And I was like, I'll fly, go meet him, full of hope and expectations. And then the journey started and everything. And I remember, it's a story I share often, where I said that. And then one day we were talking, and then he did something that even made me more interested in him. Like our first meeting, he was like, should we pray together? I was like, be still my beating heart. He wants to pray. Why not? Like, come on. What else is a Christian girl looking for? A man that wants to pray when all the other characters we met never wanted to even follow you to church, talk about church. And then the guy says, should we pray? I'm just like, sure, why not? So, that just made me think, oh gosh, he has a sensible head on him. And then I think we'd been talking for about a month or something. And then he tells me, and then he's not, I remember we were talking, and this is in the days of, I'm going to show you my age now, in the days of Skype, using Skype, before we got to the world that we are in today, where you can actually just do anything on your phone. This is where you had to go and find, find devices, download, all of that kind of stuff. Anyways, and I just noticed that he was a bit cold, and I was like, what's wrong with you? He was like, well, I got some news today, and I wasn't particularly happy about it. I was like, okay, so what is it? You know? And he was like, oh, that he was talking to his parents and they prayed in their prayer group. Don't get me started. Because I have many thoughts about these things. They prayed in their prayer group and that, they said that I wasn't his wife. Hello? Wait. Let's rewind. How are your parents even involved? We've only been talking for a month. Like, he was like, oh, that, his parents are always looking out for him and all of that. And I remember just thinking to myself, okay, so what does this mean for us? Because I had been praying. I had passed the point where I was foolish enough to think that I was going to just do this without God. So, I was already praying and I got a sense that I thought that he could be a great person to be with. And I just remember he was like, oh yeah, that they even asked him, well, the other ladies in his life. And so he put all these names forward. So like putting names in a hat and they draw out a name. And they gave him all these things. And then I was like, so what does that even mean for us? And he was like, well, I'm a bit confused, because I really like you and all of that. And we had planned this whole trip. He was coming to see me, spend time with me, all of that. So I was like, are you still coming? Like, he was like, oh yeah, I'll come. He came, we had an amazing time. But obviously, there's now this cloud of your parents prayed and said, I'm not your wife. So even though we're having a great time, my head is thinking, something is not quite right here. And then sadly, my dad died around in that window of time as well. So it was almost like double grief, where grief of the relationship that now wasn't going to pan out, and then having to grieve the fact that my dad just died. But I remember just saying, okay, so what do you want to do? He was like, I think I need time. I was like, okay, so what does that mean? He was like, I'm not going to be able to talk to you. Literally, the word I think is ghosting. Ghosted me. Well, he did give me an advancement. So it wasn't quite ghosting, but he literally disappeared. 10 months later, he showed up again. And I was like, what's the matter? And he was like, he just thought we should try and be friends. I was like, how? Like, how are we going to do it? You know? But I remember that even that and I should have listened. The kind of thing where, as a woman, in hindsight, they say it's beautiful. Like, you should know that as soon as he came back, you should have shut it down quickly. But I just thought, oh, I was single. And I remember just thinking, maybe, women, how we women are. I'll change him. All those are things that we have in our hearts that we never. We try, and I'm just like, I don't know whether we think we're junior Holy Spirit or something. But it's just like, okay. But literally, the thing literally fizzled out within like a few weeks or months. It literally ended really badly. And I took that. And I remember when it ended really badly. I remember God, I was so upset. I was like, God, can you imagine? Blah, blah, blah. It's because he met me single. And I remember saying, I remember the phrase I said, the next time he comes back, let him not find me single. The next time he sent me a message, I was already engaged. Because it was like as though, almost like the vexation of the spirit from inside my spirit, I spoke the words categorically with force. And the next time he comes back, let him not make me single. But if nothing else, that whole, first of all, there are things I know today that I can see clearly written. I should never have done this. I should never have done that. But then there was also something I did that kind of, I feel like, unraveled the whole thing. Was I remember praying and saying, I remember saying a prayer saying, God, can you show me what this guy is really like? And so when things started to unravel, God was like, you prayed, I answered you. So it's not like it's a bad thing in itself. You're just getting to see his character. And I was like, yeah. I just didn't think it was going to unravel like that. I thought you were going to show me good qualities, not this side of him. But I remember just saying after that, never again. No. You see this long distance thing, I'm not doing. And even now, when people come to me and say, oh, should I do long distance? I say, and I tell them, I'm very honest with them. I said, look, as a person, I'm not for it per se, but I don't shut it down as well because, there's nothing God cannot do. So we're not stopping it, but you must be very practical about it. You must be ready to make the investments, do all of that, and find ways to learn about this person's character in a way that FaceTime will not tell you. So you must find other ways to get, all of those kind of things. And I just thought, yeah, never again. So that was that one. And then in terms of something good, I remember when I met my husband, didn't think he was my husband. In fact, I remember the first time I saw him. I can remember the first time I saw him. Obviously, now when you look back, you can remember that, oh, I saw this person. I remember we're at a singles thing in church. And I remember this guy sort of joked from the back. I turned on like 2%. I was like, and I carried my face, because in my mind, first of all, he didn't have my type. So it was like, yeah, didn't even bother looking twice or anything like that. But I remember that when we became friends and I started to like him, at least I'm sure when he's listening to this, he's going to be like, I told you people, she liked me. But anyways, I remember that there was one time when I started noticing that I might potentially have feelings for him. I told God, I've been down this road many times, because remember, I'm the girl that didn't like gaps. So I was constantly always being in a situationship more than a relationship, because most of them did not have form, they did not have shape. They were just something to do and let's see as we go along. But I remember saying to God, I remember even where I was driving to work, and I used to, on my journeys to work, I used to pray in the car. It was just part of our thing. God and I would talk. I would have spent time in the house, read my Bible, all of that, but in the car specifically, I would worship and I would pray. So that's how I used to spend my journeys to work. And then on the way back, I would be listening to a podcast and all of that. So, and I remember this particular journey. I was driving on the A27 going into Eastbourne. And I remember saying to him, I've been here before. No. I remember doing the physical action. I said, here's my heart. For anybody to take it, they're going to have to go through you. And I literally left it there. And then I started noticing that he wasn't really doing anything. And so I was just like, maybe he's not him. So I remember even him when I said afterwards to him that I didn't think you were interested in me. And as far as I was concerned, if you were not interested in me, it meant there was the better man round the corner. It just wasn't you. So, and then when God then, my pastor then spoke to me, I said, look, Amechi is interested in you. He's spoken to me about it. And I was like, wow, okay, this is serious. That he made all that effort to involve other people without even I didn't know anything. I literally was finding out after the fact. And that even immediately made me respect him as a person, because I thought only a serious-minded man would tell somebody else that's not his age mate per se, someone that has that level of authority over our interactions and relationship, and tell them that, look, I want to do this with her. And by that point in time, he had prayed. God had told him I was his wife. He wasn't just, oh, come, I just want to talk to her and see how it's going. No, he knew when he was coming to ask me out that he wasn't asking me out just to date me. He was asking me out because he was going to marry me. So he was very clear. And I remember even when that journey started, when he asked me out and I said yes, I just kept saying to God, but I'm not really attracted to him. And God was like, you have no clue where this is going, right? But I remember just people ask me, how did I know my husband was the one? I literally asked God. The same way I'm talking to you is the same way I spoke to him, and said, hi, good morning. This is what's on the table. Is he the one? And the simple answer was yes. And people said to me, you mean he actually said yes? I said, yes, he said yes, because I didn't just start my conversations with God when I wanted to get married. I started my conversations with God way before any man ever showed up on the scene, because I was just building a relationship with God anyway. But I remember just, that slight anxiety of, well, I don't think I'm attracted to him in that way, but you've said yes, so I'm going to do this anyway. And I remember thinking, oh, gosh, what's going to happen? What if he kisses me and I don't like him? But I've said yes, And then one day he took me out on a date. And then I remember we're standing in the car park and I was about to leave him because we were in London and I was driving back to where I lived in Brighton. And just as I was about to leave, he just literally pulled me close and then he kissed me. And I felt all the electricity and I thought, wait, you mean I am? But it just showed me the power of faith, that I had to trust that if he said yes, he had Even the attraction part sorted out. But yeah, those are my two stories. I could go on about many others, but yeah, let's keep it to that.
Amazing. I'm sure a lot of people are like, no. Let them keep talking, sharing their stories. Oh yeah, Bridget, Bunmi, pour it. But I mean, if we had stories alone, I know some people in the audience that always have their ears itchy for Jesus. They will not take out the best that they can. But thank you both of you for that. Bunmi, on your own story, what I also would say, I really appreciate that I got from you was that sincerity in saying you recognized that you were afraid of gaps. I think people who are, at the dating stage, some of the things that they are struggling with and they've had repeated over and over in their relationships and making them go back into another one. They've not sat down to say, this is this, this is this. And the truth is, until you face today, you cannot deal with what you need to deal with to be equipped for tomorrow. And that's really what happens with a lot of people. And for that person who is single, and I mean, it's not a bad thing if you're being single and dating different people on your journey to meeting the right person. But what has been a pattern? What is present? What is the driving force behind the decisions you've been taking? Because it is in that place of reflection and acceptance from awareness that you can say, okay, I think I need to watch out for this and all of that. And then you said something that was really beautiful. I'm sure, Bridget would agree with me on that one, where you said that you could clearly hear God say yes on the situation because it was not your first time actually asking God on something. And I think that's what happens with many of us who are people of faith. We don't engage God on the mundane or the trivial things. And so we only wait for the big things to happen. And that's why we struggle to really say, is God really saying this at this time? But if you get used to God saying, no, don't wear this shirt today, it's something as simple as that. I know some people say, oh, God doesn't mind it. Yes, okay. God doesn't really mind what you wear. But if you can at least have him confirm that something is a better color for some reason on a particular day, then when the big ones with knowing that, this is the guy, this is not the guy, this is the lady, this is not the lady, it will be more straightforward and direct for you to consider. So thank you for that angle and helping us see how this really applies, because sometimes when you actually just tell people, oh, just know what you're thinking, be aware of where you are, they don't get it. But when they hear that this is how it played out, or like what Bridget was telling us earlier on how, the dynamics of the differences of their personalities showed up, people were like, the people have had personality things before, but they don't know how it shows up in a relationship. They are seeing it, they're experiencing, and they will be saying things like, this person doesn't understand me. This person doesn't get me. I don't get this person. This person changed on me, because you've just not seen how it has played out in other relationships and how you can leverage on that. So I really appreciate the stories you've shared with us. And so as we go on, I just also wanted to, dig a little bit deep into what one thing would you say has been a foundational lesson for you? Bridget, Elesin, we want to hear from you first on this one. What one thing would you, I mean, I know that there are many things, because I know that if you were supposed to handle a conference now, Bridget, in 3 days, I know you can run a 3-day conference. But we need just one thing that you would say. There are many things, but this one, it shows up again and again for you as a foundational pillar in the marriage that you enjoy today.
Okay, I think I would just piggyback on Bunmi's conversation on having a relationship with God. It's so easy to want to do life, on your own. I grew up, I've seen it all in terms of religion. Like I tell people, I've been an idol worshiper. I've been somebody that went to a white garment church. And believe you me, I didn't know what I was looking for, but I just knew that I wanted something that was real. So knowing God for myself, reading books, and just, if there's one thing I tell people I still pride myself on, is that hearing ears. There was a book I read then, I think it was Hearing Ears by Larry Lee. Having ears that will hear the heartbeat of God per time. So for me, that was very, very important before I got married, because I already knew at a young age that I was called to do God's work, ministry, larger than even what I'm doing now. So I was very, very careful, because all the people I saw as role models, kind of women in ministry, they had issues, including the situationship that Bunmi talked about. They had serious issues with relationship, with marriage. Some married first, second, all sorts of dramas. And I told myself that was not going to be my story. Till today, one of my best story in the Bible is still the John 4 woman. And I had an encounter while I was in the university with that same John 4 woman situation. And for me, it was key that whoever I will get married to will have a real relationship, not spooky, real relationship with God. Somebody that could hear God as well for himself. And we both had similar values of loving God, people, and doing his work. So that foundation of knowing God for ourselves is what is still keeping us, is what is still holding us together. Because no matter the situation, we've had challenges, we've had dramas, but what is God saying concerning this thing? What is he saying? Has changed a lot of things. And we've taught our children too. Our faith will not carry you, you know? You need to find God for yourself and have faith in God. So because we don't see him, you know how it is. People say, are you sure there's God? This is, I said, no. Because we don't see him, do you see the gray matters in your brain? Is your brain not functioning? So because we don't see him, does not mean he's not there. So find him for yourself. Question, oh, you have it? Okay, just like she said, say it the way it is. When you talked about clothes, I'm that kind of crazy one. What am I wearing today? And sometimes when I get to speak and I listen and wear that cloth, I'll get to find that that's the same cloth that everybody in that whatever. So there's already that connection. So it's easy. As many that are led by the Spirit of God are sons. You are led by God. You will hear a voice behind you saying, hearing is the way. I don't like preaching, but man, I have to say it. That the God factor has been a foundation. I didn't go into this marriage by myself. It wasn't something that's, oh, the man is fine. And he had, no. All sorts of things to say, God, is he the one? Because sometimes, just like Bunmi said, you're attracted to something you're attracted to. I used to be attracted to the dangerous ones, fearfully made ones, where it's like, I want a manly man because, like I said, I'm a strong personality. And when she was talking about herself, like, oh, I didn't have elder ones, but I was my mom's go-to person. I grew up with her friends. So when I tell people, some of my youngest friends then were like 10 years older than me. So even then, those days in church, people were like, you are still here single. You don't go and get married. I'm like, are we mates? Who are you talking to? Please relax, because those that were my friends were in their 30s, late 30s, going to 40s. So my mom's friends were my friends. So sometimes when I make proverbs, I say, you talk like an old woman. I say, yeah, I grew up old, aged. You understand? So for me, that's the main foundation. The God factor. Still helping us, still, it's every decision. It might not make sense, but we've had to go through to say, God, are you in this? Or are we just doing our thing? And sometimes when we make the decision, oh, we didn't hear him so well, we decide to make the move because we tell ourselves he's giving us brain, let's use it. We still go back to, okay, we felt this was it. So what is it? You know? So that's our foundation. And I'm not going to stop. For people that say, you and this God thing. It can work for you that you don't need God. I need God like every day, like oxygen. I need him. So that's the foundation. That's what is keeping my marriage, keeping my home, keeping me as a person. I cannot deny my foundation that it's been in Christ and it will remain in Christ till Jesus comes.
Amen. Beautiful. I like that, and I see that. Well, we are of kindred spirits, those of us that are on the session today, because I see that we're all just nodding our heads and like, preach it. Okay, Bunmi, let's hear from you. What would you say is definitely key? In addition to, you could give us your own angle to this as well, or what you would say. Well, if you don't want to say the same thing, this for you is, is foundational to, having a blast in relationships or in marriage.
Yeah, because I was definitely going to say a relationship with God, but I also thought that a relationship with God, and I remember saying to people recently that God's love language is obedience. One of the things that has shifted a lot of things for me in marriage, in relationships, has always been about obedience. So he will say something to you, you're like, sometimes you almost want to fight him if you could. But then you go and do what he said. And then it produces such an amazing result. And that in itself then leads to something else. And it leads to one of the things that has helped us as a couple in my own marriage specifically, that obedience has also birthed unity. Because the more when he says do it like this and you do it, it promotes a oneness that, was not necessarily there prior to the instruction that he gave. And so it's not just the relationship is there for a reason, and it's there to keep us together, but also to fulfill his purpose, because it's always about whatever. The reason why marriage was created was God's purpose for man. God had an intention by bringing marriage for man. It was never man's idea, it was always God's idea. So it's like, okay, at the end of the day, this marriage is going to work, it has to be done whatever way you say it. And that means and also being at peace with obeying him irrespective of what anybody else thinks, obeying him irrespective of what family thinks, what friends think. And that's sometimes very hard, because depending on the kind of families you come from, some families are quite close and everybody has an opinion. I've told people that you have to accept in life that human beings have an opinion about everything that you are doing. It's up to you to choose to accept whatever they say to you. But at the end of the day, for me, one of the things that has become foundational has been obedience. What is he saying? How is he saying it? Have I done it? Because the definition of success for me as a person is doing what God said, irrespective of the outcome. That I learned it about 4 years ago, that success for me is doing what God said. And that sometimes means he annoyed me. I really should turn my back to him. And God is like, I don't know what you are doing here. Get up and go and meet him. Or I have to have an awkward conversation. When I say awkward, those kind of challenging conversations that that this thing is going to end up in a fight. But he says, don't say it. I remember there was one particular one a few months ago. Don't say it today. And I kept saying, but this thing needs to be said. He said, I know, or don't say it today. And I was like, okay. So the thing is stewing and brewing inside of me. Day 1, day 2. We now get to day 3. He now says it's today. So obviously, he says it early on in the day. I'm just like, okay, so, we're going to do this. And he's like, not now. What do you mean not now? You said it's today. He said, I said it's today. I didn't say it's right now. Down to the granularity of, okay, go upstairs, change into your pajamas. Now calm down. It was that as specific as that. And then because he was the one that said it, and because I was now following him literally instruction by instruction, when it came to having the conversation went a lot better than I thought. Obviously, there was still a bit of funny feelings afterwards, but the essence of the conversation was true. Because now, part of the pacing me was to remove part of the emotion that was going to cause issues and just create the setting that permitted for both of us to actually hear what needed to be said. But that obedience is now a thing for us that we aim to obey together. So I'll say to him, what are you thinking? And we're not perfect at it. We're still learning on the job. But what do you sense about this thing? Because then we want to do it together as a couple. So yeah.
Incredible. I love that. So on one hand, well, the major thing that we're seeing now, especially for people of faith who are listening into this episode on relationships and family, marriage, and all that, is knowing that you cannot do without the anchor of God's presence in all that you do. I think a lot of people just want to do God and then do marriage separately. And of course, those who do that, they see the results. There's a difference, right? But saying that as we are starting the new year, it's something you probably want to be watching out for. There was something Bridget said as well that I didn't want to miss out when she said something about values. And I know that sometimes when we are so excited about the person that we see, especially for singles, when you now start dating, you don't do the value matching thing. Because in your mind, you're like, it doesn't really matter. He likes this, he prefers this, but interests, they're okay if they are diverse, but not when it comes to values. Values, those are the things that would shake things in the future, because when conflict happens, you lean towards your values. And if they are really very diverse on an extreme ends, then you can be sure that it will be a tougher time reconciling. It's not as if you can't sort it out, but you will have. So you want to ask yourself, every time you have conflict, do you want to be stressed resolving the conflict? That's the thing you have to, think about and think into. And, Bumi stressing the granularity of obedience and listening to the details of the obedience in the connection with God, because some of us want to have Jesus as our savior, but not as Lord. And so we don't bring his lordship into our marriages. We're like, God, tell me that one when it comes to money, but in this marriage, this is how I want to do it. I want to do me, just realizing that values are key in the relationship. And of course, staying obedient is another thing. And you cannot really say you're really obedient if you've also not nurtured that place of hearing God and knowing that this is God leading you. Because sometimes the flesh does sound like it is God sometimes, but you should be able to decipher as you work with God on that. And these angles you both shared have been good, and I don't want us to also miss the theme for today's episode, and that is beginning with the end in mind. And I'm just going to ask this question in a little bit of a broad way, and Bumi, we will start with you on this because we're addressing the singles first. And so at a time like this, the truth is a lot of people are positioning every time there's a new year. It's a new year, new whatever, resolution, goals, whatever, right? And everyone is going into that. And so I want you to give us a two-sided coin, obviously, on what people need to be looking out for in relationships or dating as they go into the year. So what do you think could help people to make the best of the beginning positively? And what should they be watching out for? So two things we want you to just tell us. Look, if you're a single person dating or about to date this year, look out for this. It will help you. And watch out for this. It might hurt you or hurt the relationship you're in. We'd like to hear your perspective with respect to dating and relationship.
Okay, so there's a question I always ask: who do you want to be? It's a question that matters a lot. And standing at the beginning of a year is always a great time to say, okay, if I look at myself on the 31st of December 2024, that's the year we're in, who do I want to be at the end of this year? How do I want to be perceived at the end of this year? How do I want to show up? Because that's behavior, or should I say goals, you struggle to do goals that aren't aligned with who you are. And so even if you want to date, who do you want to be when you're dating? And I can tell you that there are at least three things I'm always saying to people matter a lot. You must know who you are. You must know why you are here. And you must know where you're going. Because if you boil them, because those things then shape who you want to be. Like, if you know who you are as a person, or like how Bridget said, I am extroverted. I'm very clear about it. But there's also something she said. I know the kind of ministry that God has said I'm going to do, and I'm not even there yet. She used those words. That level of clarity, you must take it into dating. You know why? Because not everybody can follow you. One of my favorite people in the Bible, and they don't talk about their marriage, but the Bible mentions something that I always say to the Holy Spirit, sometimes you should unpack the thing that is behind the scenes that we don't see in the letters. The story of Deborah, when they're going to describe Deborah in Judges 4, they talk about her as a prophet, as a judge, but then they called her the wife of Lapidoth. And in a society that is very patriarchal and very male dominated, how could a woman like that stand out if she was not married to the right kind of man? If you are going to go into dating, please know who you are. Know why you are here. There's a reason why you are given the gifts that you have been given. There's a reason why you have the skills that you have. God is particular. He's intentional about putting everything inside of each person for his purpose. So why are you here? Who has he sent you? Those are the kind of questions you have to ask yourself before you ever go into dating. Why? Because if you don't know these things, you will settle for anything else. I have heard a quote often where it says, if you don't stand for something, you will fall for anything. It matters in dating and in relationships. And guess what? The person that you end up with has an impact on the kind of life that you will live going forward. So you might as well make sure that you know yourself well enough to know who can be with you on the journey that you're supposed to be going on. I am married to a person that allows me to boldly go and do what I'm meant to do. He has no issues. He does not need to share the stage. In fact, he has zero interest in sharing the limelight with me. More often than not, I'm the one always saying, please come, let them know that I'm a married woman so that they won't think that we're just here talking, you know. But the point is that if you don't have that level of self awareness, that level of clarity of vision, you are more likely to end up with someone that might frustrate you. I always give the example of if you are a woman, God has clearly told you, I've given you these assets, I've given you these resources, and I'm sending you to the World Bank. You now meet a man who is in a similar field, but he wants a housewife. Can you see that if you do not have clarity, you will say, oh, well, because he's in a similar field, we met at work, that kind of thing where you're like, oh, we met at work, he's my colleague, and, we clicked, we have great connection, we have great chemistry. Chemistry is great until it's time to do marriage, because chemistry is not what's going to keep you in marriage. Trust me, everybody has the divinity's purpose inside of them, and that purpose doesn't stay hidden for long. Eventually, it comes out. So you want to have clarity about all those things that matter, so that way you then think, is this person meant to, are we going to come like this, or are we going to be two parallel lines that will never meet? Hence why people end up in marriages that they should never have ended up in, because they didn't have clarity about who they were. They didn't have clarity about why they were here. And they certainly didn't have clarity about the future that they wanted. So as you stand at the beginning of a year, you must have that level of clarity. And that level of clarity then determines what you will do next. If you set goals outside of alignment with those three things, you will end up at the end of the year still dissatisfied. There will always be that dissatisfaction within you because you didn't scratch the right itch. You have to scratch the right itch. And the only way to scratch the right itch is to do the thing that you were meant to do and to be in the right kind of relationships. So, first of all, before I always tell people, take a moment. See, dating, you will date, you'll be tired. Dating will do its thing, but make sure that you are right and ready before you ever go into dating, so that way the journey is easier, the journey is more purposeful, the journey is more enjoyable.
Beautiful, fantastic, fantastic. I like, that charge that, you kind of basically put there. And, saying it that way, that the goals you will set should align with who you want to be or who you are. The goals you set, the goals you set. I'm repeating this thing that Bunmi has said right now for every single going into the year, saying, okay, I stopped dating into Christmas. I'm looking forward to another relationship. The goals you set around relationship must align, must align. We do get carried away a lot with how the guy looks, especially for ladies. We want the guy to be tall, maybe dark. Some ladies prefer light-skinned guys. It doesn't really matter, but we want him to be tall and handsome, whatever complexion it is that you swing towards, right? But then we're not thinking a lot about who you want to be. And the example you gave about you want to be corporate, but then the guy is looking forward to someone who will be home with the children. It's already a conflict of interest there going on there. So, but if you already know this is your preference, then you know that you probably need to compromise or negotiate, whichever one. But at least you are prepared for it. You're not caught unawares, and that's the encouragement there. And so I think the question I want to leave a single person who is probably dating already or about to is, how much do you know you? Because you can only do this right if you know you. How much do you know you? And not just like Bridget was able to clearly say, I'm extrovert, introvert, but also what you've been called to. That self-discovery is really the first place to start with. So if you're still here and there about who you are, you probably need to go and take time. Ask people who are close to your loved ones, work with a mentor, work with a coach, and find out where you are at. Because you can only map that GPS when you even can say, okay, I'm here. This is where I'm planning to go. But where are you? Where are you today? So thank you, Bunmi, for that angle that you've given. And I'm trusting that, anyone who is really trying to reposition differently when it comes to dating and relationship will start to think along those lines. Bridget, Elesin, we want you to just, give us your own thoughts around, the family space and marriage at the beginning of the year like this, because people ended 2023 on different notes. Some people had it great, some people have it so great, and they want to position differently. But what would you say? Look, if you're a family person, you're married, husband or wife, you want to be thinking about this and you want to be watching out for this, what would you be dropping for us today on that?
Okay, interesting. I've had this write-up to do that I've refused to do, which I have to do maybe after this conversation. And it was like, will I say, it was like a dream. And if you know Tunde and I very well, we talk on oneness, on unity. Being a team, we call ourselves Team Elesin. That's the essence of our relationship and our marriage. And so what I saw was this woman, it had to do with finance. And so it was a big deal. Like, they needed to work together as a couple to make their finance better. And you know how it is with couples. This person is running their own race, the other person is running their own race. We've always told people we believe in joint account, but more than joint account is joint accountability. Being accountable to each other. Being accountable to say, okay, yes, you are earning your money, but what are you doing with it? And what is your contribution to the family finance? And whether we like it or not, there's scarcity everywhere. But because we are in God, we believe in the abundance that He brings. But if you don't manage that abundance well, you won't do well. When they gathered they had two, it was two loaves or 5 loaves and 2 fishes, whatever it was. They gathered 12 baskets. At the end of such a small amount of whatever that God multiplied by miracle, they still gathered. So God is still in the business of us saving, just like Joseph saved for the days that they had plenty, 7 years of having plenty, 7 years of not having. So if you are wise as a couple, when you write your goals, we do that every year. And just this year, I told our children, add 20 years to your age now. Where will you be? Because we think that it's far. It's not. So when you have clarity about your goal, first of all, you will know when that thing is happening around you, and you'll be able to step in when you see opportunities. Let me use our second daughter as an example. Last year, she wrote, I'm going to one of these universities in June to check if that's a school I will want to go to. Said that in December. Read our goals to each other so that we'll keep ourselves accountable. Prayed about it, left. In January, she had an opportunity to be in that city. But because she had written that goal clearly, I'm going to be in this place in June, she was able to finish what she went to do in that city and still went on a tour to that university because it was clear that she will go to that place to, visit. So what am I saying to couples? One, marriage is for two of you. Marriage for God is oneness, is unity in marriage. So this year, can you work on your oneness up to, like Bunmi said, obeying? Because that's been the secret of our relationship. Sometimes I tell my husband, I say, people don't know the crazy things that we do in terms of giving, in terms of instructions that will first of all kill us before we can even voice out. And then people now wonder, where are these people making so much progress? Don't envy my harvest when you don't know the seeds I've sown. I've sown painful seeds. For God so loved that He gave. What He was giving was His beloved Son to die for somebody that was not worth it. So work on your oneness, whether it's in finance, but that instruction was for finance. And for a man listening, please, we're not saying if the woman earns more, it's a problem. It's not a problem. It's how you both work to manage what has been given. Because who earns more does not matter. But are we both making effort to earn something? If you are not crippled, you are not sick, there's nothing wrong with you. Then you can't say, is my wife running? No. Because there are lazy men and women all around. I've been a domestic goddess, a sit-at-home mom and wife, and I was very productive. So don't use any excuse. Sit down and write, what do we intend to earn this year? How are we going to earn it? Where is it coming from? And both of you sit down and agree. Then in terms of children, everything, just agree. So when we're writing our goals for our personal goals, we're writing family goals. We're writing things we want to do for ourselves. We're writing ministry goals. We're writing everything we want to do. So please, anybody, don't make it, oh, because my church is writing goals, I'm writing goals. Can you track it? Can you check later? I've achieved this, I've achieved that. And the truth is, if you are really clear about where you're going to, when you write it out, not every road leads to where you are going to. So when you see a road that is not leading there, you pull out. We believe in value. What are your values? What are your family values? That has helped us to say, not every business is for us. Because if integrity is not involved in it, we can't do anything shady. So integrity is part of our family value and personal value. So it's there. So sit down and gain clarity on what your values are. It will show you who to do business with, who not to do business with, how to do the business, how not to do the business, and so much more. And then the discipline to make those dreams reality. Because it's not business as usual. This year is not the year you just write, oh, I have 60-something bucket list. Oh, I'm this, and you are feeling cool. If you don't work those bucket lists, it's not going to work itself. You need to now sit down. How do I achieve 10 things? How do I achieve the 20 things? And that's how you move on. So the days of just talking a good talk and not working the talk, it's gone. So for that couple, the vision I saw, dream I saw, was so clear. It was on finance. Man, help your wife. Wife, help your husband. Work together. And for the men, I'll just say this. Once a woman is the top earner and you don't manage resources together, you don't do things, you don't have job, does not mean you cannot be productive and useful in the home. You want to be Lord and Master, you're not contributing. And she's in a, in quotes, masculine zone. And then she comes back feeding, doing everything, and she comes back and you are still not making her feel like a baby girl. She will use that masculine energy against you. And you have two men in the house. So until you understand that this woman is a boss lady at home, doing so many things, you're not doing anything to even help her feel like a woman, you will lose her and you have two men in the house. So I beg all men listening, it's not about who makes the money. It's about how we help ourselves to make the money and to be there for each other so that we don't, you know, when you say no man left behind, no woman left behind, we don't leave each other behind. It's so easy to leave each other behind. Marriage is for two of us. We work it as a team and we keep working it. So that's it for this year. Please work as a team. Whether it's your finance, parenting, what we do with parenting is crazy. We're parenting adults now. Like this year will be 2 adults and a teenager. Okay? And it's not same thing when they were babies. So if we don't have our goals on how to parent them across nations, we won't be here. And when I tell people what we do with the children is we have a group for 5 of us. We have a group for each child with the parents. So when it's your business, it's your business. Your siblings don't have to know. You keep your business. And we're talking almost. And then there's somebody checking in every week. I'm not the one that checks. But I'm the one that calls and like, get things done. Where are we on this? Then my husband checks. Every week he's calling. I'm sure he calls them more than they call themselves if there's anything like that. So it's a lot of work. So when you talk about success, apart from the obedience that Bunmi talked about, it's you walking your talk, even with the family. It's like a business. If you don't run your family intentionally, you will lose your family. I see a lot of top executives. That's where we are now. My husband is high up there, and I know where I am in terms of the work I do. If you're not deliberate about date night, about being in each other's space, about keeping tabs on each other, you just wake up one day, the children are gone, semi-emptiness. Then you say, oh, they don't have a marriage anymore. Why? You never had a marriage before because you were not intentional. So while you're growing the children, while you're growing, doing things, please remember yourselves. It started with the two of you in the first place. Keep your date night. Keep cutting each other. Keep loving on each other. Keep being kind to each other. Keep working together because you need each other when the ages or when the children are gone. So much to unpack, my sister, but I think we get the picture.
So much to unpack. And just like, Bumi's feedback to us kind of brought out the question of where are you with knowing who you are. I think because of the stress you had on oneness and teamwork and then being
Mhm.
intentional, I think the charge I would have for those in a marriage setup already who are married, is to say, how connected are you? How are you aligned? And I don't know,
Yeah.
maybe must be a reason why you are stressing finance. I don't think it's by chance. I think there might just be quite a number of families that need to do that alignment going forward. But the encouragement I just want to have on that is that, look, when the Bible says with two 10,000 shall flee, it makes us see the multiplication factor when it comes to marriage. It's not 2,000. One is 1,000, two is 10,000, it's times 10. It's
Yeah.
time. It's just a multiplication there so that couples don't miss out on that. And I mean, if you're finding it difficult to have that conversation, it's okay to ask someone you both trust to come into the conversation to help you guys to have that.
Yeah.
But don't miss out on the blessing of the oneness and the teamwork that can happen in a marriage. And I also like the reference you made to the goals, because sometimes we write goals individually as spouses and we just want to run with it. You don't know what your children are trying to, aim for. You don't know what your spouse is trying to aim for. And that accountability is good because you can tell that, oh, you did say you were going to do this. And I think one of
Yeah.
the try to do in our families to also ask the kids, with your goals, how do you want us to step in to support you to make sure this comes to reality this year? And just knowing that you should be able to ask your spouse, okay, you're saying this. Do you want me reminding you on the days you fast that you want to do this? Do you want me to remind you that you need to connect with your friends or something like that? But there must be a part that we can all play in making sure that the goals that our family members have set are realized. And as we start the year, those are the things that I feel that Bridget is also challenging us to do, as also Bumi has encouraged that we start with the self-discovery point. It's been an amazing conversation. I'm looking at the time. I know a lot of people is like, give us emojis, give us emojis. Don't worry, we'll come with part two, part two, so that you can at least get to other things, after the episode. But as they leave us tonight, and I'm looking at the time, with just about 1 minute each left, I just want you to share with us, any project you've recently concluded or you're working on that you would want people to be part of in the next few weeks or days. If it's something that you just a resource that you've produced or created that you're like, I know this has helped people to do this, or this was created with this intention, just let us know. And then how we can access it, buy it, subscribe, sign up, or whatever, so that we would not leave just hearing this today and not knowing how to continue with you. We will start with you again, Bumi, on this one.
Okay. Thank you for that. So I've written a book, and it was written with the heart that nobody should make the foolish mistakes I made because there were many. I had over 10 years of waiting to get married. So trust me, 10 years of some silly silly things, but some very wise things at the same time. And you know I remember that when I was writing the book, first of all, I didn't want to write a book. I like words, but I wasn't really keen on writing anything. I was happy to just teach it. But God said, look, there's sometimes you need somewhere to just go back. Oh, I remember Bumi said this, but maybe if I just quickly check something, that guide that you can hold in your hand. And I've written it as a part memoir, part self help, because it's something that you can do by yourself. That's self discovery. You can do it by yourself. And so I wrote a book called Waiting Gracefully, which is to help you enjoy the journey from single to married, giving you the tools, the training, and the sort of like the support from afar. I'm happy to do it up close and personal, like in a session, but the least I can do is give you something that you can hold on to and say, okay, I want to grow my relationship with God. What do I do? Or I want to fix my finances whilst I'm still single. What do I do? Literally, it's that detailed. Oh, I remember things like, when the church teaches us, and I wrote it from a Christian's perspective because I found that the church was happy to tell us things like, don't have sex. But they didn't tell us the practical ways to stop that and the
Yeah.
practical things to put into place. So things that are written in the book are written from that practical point of view of, okay, how do we take what they've said to us in church and make it as practical for the Christian? Because that's what it tends to be missing for most Christians. They hear the word, but they then don't know how to do the word. It's nice to be able to do that. And so you can get the book on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, or if you're in Nigeria, you can get it in Roving Heights in Nigeria. At the same time, I send out a weekly newsletter where I talk about all things singleness, dating, preparing yourself for your marriage. And I do that via my website. So you can go to my website and sign up there. And you can you'll get a free 5-day email series that kind of just helps you to begin to unpack some of the things I've shared in this podcast.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. So we're going to drop the link to Bunmi's website in the caption of whatever platform you're watching this on, and then you can continue to follow her and learn from her. And yes, she does have sessions with clients, so you might definitely want to, consider having a session booked with her, and then, get more wisdom in that area. So Bridget, we want to hear from you. What project can we look into on your own end?
Okay, for now, I'm still working on it. It's definitely the executive coaching for couples that are in the C-suite category, because we found that over time they're having more challenges with being left behind at the end of the day. They check out without knowing. And so Tunde and I, that's my husband and I, we decided to just face them. But we have what we call a community on Facebook called the Complete Family Club. And hopefully this year we're going full blast on the Complete Family Club to help couples. And then we have various programs. So on my own, I coach, teach, do quite a lot. So I handle the Complete Woman Network on my own, and I have the program. But for now, everything is just, how it is. You're passionate, you are old school, doing your thing live and stuff. But now we have to fully go online. So the best place to meet me right now will be on Instagram, because there I monitor more, and so you find some more information. But still not showing what I do. So even with my books, you know me very well. I've been in men's ministry like forever, so I'm still so passionate about fathers. I had 2 books written for fathers, so that'll be you can go to my blog to check that out and see if you're interested in helping your man become a better father, making fatherhood memorable. But basically, check me out on Instagram. You get more of my details. Then my website, if you send a message, I'll definitely get the message. Basically, what we're doing is just helping couples, do life better, stay as one. So we do pre-post marital counseling and marriage enhancement programs. We do that, and it's just been so. It's now we're really, they say loud it. We've done it underground a long time. I do so much and I don't really talk about it, because for me it's first the ministry, but now I'm understanding that you have to do more, because more people need help than what you're doing. So I'm not there yet, but working on so many projects with my husband and personally. But I think it's more of Team Elesin this year. Less of Bridget this year, more of Team Elesin. Yeah.
Lovely. I like that. What I like about, what both of you have said is, the angle you brought to us today, you have something that we can immediately look into.
Mm-hmm.
Is available on the platforms. We're just going to leave a link for you to sign up, but I would say follow her. And same thing with Bridget Elesin. The good thing is that she's also active on Instagram. Please follow her. We're going to also drop the link to her blog and her website for you to be able to connect with. But then I think I want to stress the categories of what they offer. Bridget Elesin is saying that because of their experience so far, they are trying to help executives who have conversations that they require addressing in the marriage space. So if you know someone who is senior up there who has been saying, this married thing, someone that they can connect with to help them to work on that in that space. And if you also know someone who has been like, I think I've waited 7 years, you're like, I know someone that has waited 10. She has written a book. Let me connect you to her. So we now have that kind of support, resource connection that you can definitely link into. And that's just a tip of the iceberg. I can imagine the amazingness that you can also still extract when you connect with these people one-on-one. And so as we come to the end of this episode, I want to say a special thank you again to Bridget Elesin and Bunmi Oduah for being here with me today. God bless you. You've poured out so much grace and substance, and I do not take it lightly. I've been married, but I wish I heard some of these things before I got married myself. Because I learned it the hard way, and we were trying not to make people do that the hard way. So thank you so much, pouring out. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for taking our time to be here. And here's wishing you both and everyone who has joined in today the best of 2024. God bless you and enjoy.